we mentioned at the introduction to the question that you're importing a lot of food in the region. Well-regulated and equitable trade is, of course, the best way to extract value from the factors of production. Dr. Pasquale, you'll remember the work we did together on the food for thought on the Nile, that terms of trade along the Nile was one of the two key determinants of sustainable resource use in the Nile Basin. And we note also that in Egypt's National Water Management Plan, one of the key indicators is to continue and support cooperation with Nile Basin countries in terms of investment and trade with them. But against all this, I know of several countries in the MENA region that are starting to talk again of self-sufficiency because of COVID-19 and the threats to their supply chains. But so, Dr. Pasquale, my question to you is increased trade a defensible and sustainable measure towards water and food security in the region or indeed globally? 10 minutes.
Look, thank you, Phil, for the question. And the straight answer, in principle, would be absolutely yes. Trade remains still, especially in times of climate change, in times of scarcity of resources, still remain a valid principle to pursue, because per se represent the balancing out of the different asymmetries. Asymmetry that can be environment, country with the lower endowment of natural resources, but also asymmetry in terms of knowledge, technology, and so on. But when we talk also about food and water security, we have to consider, of course, that there is an intrinsic link between the two. And, the increase in consumption of food, consumption in food demand, increasing demand in food, imply an increasing expected demand somewhere in water. We know very well that let's say the demand for water, drinking water and household is several order of magnitude less than the water demand for producing food. Now, when we are in situation of water scarcity, it's evident that we have to consider the import-export of the virtual water. And the virtual water as a sort of unconventional, let's say, water resources should be part of the water accounting. And in Morocco, I have example in which they already have considered in some situation of extreme scarcity of groundwater resources not to use that water for export, although economically it would be much more convenient, but they are trying to optimize the area under rain-fed with the area under groundwater irrigation. And as an example, in fact, of practical adoption of the trade and virtual water accounting. But for the trade to be a valid point to pursue, there are some conditions, of course, that needs to be as a prerequisite. And one is the fact that you have to have the finance for paying the bill of import. But the other one, and you mentioned the case of the inclination often to go to self-sufficiency, this time because of COVID, but recently in 2008 and 2009 because of the food crisis, is this sense of dependency, the sense of vulnerability that, of course, is part of the analysis. So this shows how important is the cooperation among the states. And actually, the work you mentioned when we were in the project within the Nile Basin Initiative was a very good example, which still is valid, not only for the riparian country of the Nile, but also for the Arab country of North Africa and Near East, and the relationship with Europe. So there is an opportunity there to look at intra-trade and extra-regional or extra-basin trade that can provide opportunity for optimization, so for reducing the pressure on the scarce water resources while increasing the food security. But there is a second point that I would like to raise in this concern. Unfortunately, we are still considering food produces as a commodity, strong commodity only. We need to consider the food also from the nutritional perspective. What is exactly the type of food that we need, how healthy it is, and how sustainable it is in our diet? We have been, for a period of years recently, talking about sustainable diet, let's say the implication of protein of animal origin versus vegetable origin and so on. So we need to look on the demand side to revisit what is an healthy demand and an healthy food diet, because that alone would reduce enormously the pressure on food. So there are different elements, strategic, let's say of food security, but also of nutrition, that would change also the relationships and also allow the farmers to get more advantage and more income from what has been indicated that along the value chain, sometimes, especially the long chain, 70% goes in after the farmer, all the way through to the consumers. So there, for instance, there is an additional optimization between the internal demand of food and what can be satisfied by internal production through short chains, and the one that are coming from outside as a trade between states, that is the long chain. So there are options there are opportunity, and I think it's still not fully exploited, the trade opportunity between being fair, being optimized in terms of virtual water and the aspect of nutrition. So all this together still gives a positive answer that trade remain an opportunity to balancing out all these asymmetries. I think I will stop here for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Pasquale. I found that very interesting because you and the previous panelists both referred to demand side and dietary approaches to food security, not production side, which I think is very refreshing. Now, is Dr. Ragab still with us? Because there's a question from one of the participants. Dr. Ragab?
Yes.
Oh, good. We have a question. You very kindly offered to take some questions. We have one. We have one of the participants is saying, do you think that new buildings, new constructions on the coast in Egypt should have rainwater harvesting facilities as obligatory? And in your new cities, do you think that grey water recycling should be obligatory as part of building plans authorization?
Yes, sir. I have received two questions. One of them is talking about recycling of grey water, and I'm sure that Ministry of Housing is studying something like that to be implemented mainly in new cities. For rainfall harvesting in Alexandria and Red Sea, yes, we have projects mainly in Red Sea. We have thousands of dams built to capture any rainfall and make use of it. For Alexandria, to harvest rainfall, we have some studies going on now on how to make use of any rainfall. The rainfall in arid or semi-arid countries, we have to look at this carefully. Yeah. That's the question, yeah, but I'm sure that Ministry of Housing takes care of this grey water recycling, I received to tell another question.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ragab. That's excellent to know that that work is going on and these options are being studied vigorously and seriously. I hope that answers the participants' question. But we need to move on now with the time. And we're going to start looking now at water use efficiency. This is quite a controversial subject because although all the world's water managers are calling for increased efficiency, efficiency means different things to different stakeholders. Farmers, for instance, are interested in financial efficiency. Irrigation managers are interested in irrigation modernization, but we have something called Jevons paradox, which says that increases in physical efficiency without regulatory arrangements tend to increase water scarcity rather than reduce it. We know also that governments or ministers of finance or economic ministries are interested in economic efficiency. Operators of large distribution systems are interested in distributive efficiency. And there's also the vexed questions of where we monitor our efficiency. Do we monitor it at the farm or factory level or scheme level? Do we monitor it at a national economy or do we monitor it at a basin level? In fact, there's a major paper about to be published. I was hoping it was published last week by Elsevier. Some 14 leading water management experts are calling for a totally different understanding of water use efficiency. That is going to be published anytime soon. So then sticking with Dr. Pasquale, how relevant to water security is a correct understanding of water use efficiency? And is it fair to say that conventional wisdom with respect to water use efficiency is still dominated by physical water use efficiency? And what is the best way to convert conventional wisdom into best practice? Over to you, Pasquale.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil, for this additional question. If you can mute yourself, yeah, okay, that's very good. They said now there is no echo. So regarding the first question, this has been an issue that has dominated the realm of water resource management for several decades. Because when we talk about efficiency, as well as the evolution that it took toward the productivity of water, so that we distinguish the engineering, let's say, efficiency of irrigation, vis-à-vis instead the agronomic efficiency in terms of productivity, or as you mentioned also, the economic dimension of productivity. All this efficiency and productivity became very relevant because implicitly there is this conceivement that if we are more efficient, we can save more water in this case, in the case of physical, let's say, efficiency. So it was an hidden, sometimes, or a less transparent implication that if we are more efficient, we can save more water. And so the modernization process all over the world, with different investment, sometimes has been done with the expectation that after we convert, a more traditional, less efficient irrigation system into a more efficient system, we will save some water. And that was never the case, or at least in 90% of the case, it never happened for what you just mentioned, the Jevons paradox. Essentially, becoming more efficient, being irrigation a powerful tool to increase the productivity, of course, this increase the demand for this adoption. So a system that is more efficient allow also to have a better scheduling, which allow to have higher productivity. And that means that you want more of that. And that demand, increasing demand, generally any saving of water at farm level was not considered for any other use except for the farmer itself, except for productivity itself. So that induced more, let's say, intensification or even expansion of irrigated land. So this brings now to the second point, that is what is saving the issue of scales that have been mentioned. What is saving for the farmer is not a saving necessarily for the society, for the national water resource management, nor for the, let's say, the irrigation operation or at scheme level engineer. So we need to monitor the various component of the water allocation, water destiny, water use and consumption at any of this scale. So the water accounting, so between water balance and water accounting is necessary at any scale, because each scale has its own benefit from certain use and consumption of water. The point is that overall, the let's say the wisdom that you were mentioning that is still related with the physical, how to save water. Actually, the saving is linked to sustainability of water resource management. And the determinant of sustainability remains the consumption of water, remains the renewability of that water consumed. So we have been observing that over the period of years, with the increasing technology, we have been consuming more that could be replenished. We have been consuming a higher and higher proportion of what could be renewable water. So the wisdom is, or to translate, let's say, this wisdom into practical approach, in my personal view, is that we need to have one single authority where all the stakeholder, all the sector comes together, and they look with a very strong water accounting and water balance system behind the projection and say, and look what is the best way economically, from the human rights, from the various social, let's say, demand, what is an optimal allocation of water resources. And once that allocation is done in a way that respect to the principle of renewability and the principle of sustainability, then within each sector, everybody is allowed to make any type of choice to, let's say, be efficient, be productive, and so on. But there is a cap principle. That cap principle has to be there. Otherwise, let's say, the sustainability is jeopardized. And this is also the case, let's say, in the case you have, like in the Nile, you have an annual renewability, or rain-fed system where you have annual renewability may work out in some way or another. When you have a fossil water, then you don't have renewability there. So the longevity assumes a relevance in that case. And the longest possible can be the use of certain resources that should be considered strategic, almost just reserves for times of shocks and times of pandemic or any other crisis. So to me, these are the elements that should accompany the efficiency, understanding the scales and monitoring at each scale at one authority all together, fighting as much as they want, but at the end find the solution for allocation, an optimal allocation that is sustainable in time and space. I will stop here. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Pasquale. I've heard a lot of things about water use efficiency. I've never heard of one single authority before, so that kind of excites things a little.